I'm gonna start here.
Hold on, sorry.
Okay.
Consider so good. Okay. So we had we developed a counter proposal with obviously the information that has developed over the last two sessions, revisiting the salary parts of some of the reopeners that we had proposed in the very beginning of this year's bargaining, and also looking at the settlement that has now taken place between PCS and SEIU. Gives us a better idea of where everybody is. And I apologize, I ran these copies and it looks like I somehow only came out with 3. My intention was to have everybody, so I'll give you all of them. Y'all can share them across. I actually sent another batch upstairs, but I don't know if they'll see it right now. So let me, again, sorry, this is 3 copies. Y'all don't mind sharing them across. Thank you. I'll walk through them. I've done it, and they're a little ugly, but I did it to show like in the red line, because that has one of the proposals that y'all sent across last time with the addition about the emergency sub language was in a red line, and I thought that really helped to see how we got to where we were. So I'll just walk that through. We have items 1 through 4, and please forgive any formatting. That became a little bit difficult to read, so I'll try to just refer to not just the number, but the substance of the item. Our first proposal is an increase, or counter rather, is an increase of 4.5% for all employees in the bargaining unit currently earning $15 an hour. These are the employees that received a substantial increase last year, minimum of 4.25% last year, when we had a new statutory obligation to come to start at $15 an hour, a good one, but an unfunded one. And so this would be moving them further up, and also creating some differential between our current employees and new hires that would come in after this agreement was in place. So I'll talk about that in a moment. We wanted to add language addressing retroactive pay. Of course, that's covered in our CBA, but you expressed a concern last week about wanting to settle sooner rather than later, so that those employees who might be retiring soon would not be secondarily penalized for and not receive the retro. So I added language that would prevent that from happening, that they would be paid retroactively to all bargaining unit employees employed at the date of signature. And if ratification, obviously ratification and board approval would occur later. And for those employees who resign or retire prior to board approval, that retroactive pay would be included in their final pay issued after their date of separation, which is a practice that already happens. And this would just be added onto that. That shouldn't cause any problems, and we think it alleviates any kind of time pressures.
What is the practice? I'm so sorry. What is the practice that already happens?
Like final pay, it should just be like the retro pay would be paid out, even if somebody were to resign or retire. That retro pay should be paid out with their final pay. That was it.
Do you know what article that was in? the retro pay? Do you know what article?
I don't
that is
know,
in?
I don't have to hold up it, no, I don't, I'm sorry.
Okay.
This language is different from, the retro pay is in the contract, but this.
Right, we were
this
just
was
trying
for-
to see.
This was just providing for the time frame.
We just wanted to.
Sim and I, we attached or attached that same language in item 2. That all other employees currently earning above $15 an hour would receive a 5% pay increase. All of this is on Schedule A, the salary schedule that was at the back of that, or at the end of that packet.
Okay.
Same language. And, about the retro. And then the minimum starting wage would again be raised to $15.50 an hour, which is an increase of 3.33%. We looked at the SEIU settlement. And while we were definitely supportive of a successful settlement, and as we have been through the adjustments made to the bus drivers last year that resulted in, approaching, if not accomplishing, a 20% raise for a number of employees. We noticed that there was a one-time payment included in addition to some what appeared to be generous increases for SEIU. So we applied that same, I think that same goal or that same standard here to request a non-recurring cost. We're calling it a cost of living supplement, really. It's not to say that that's any different from a bonus in this, for these purposes. But we want to acknowledge that the reason that we are going for we have such high goals and high standards for the salary agreement is because of the steep cost of living increase that our employees have faced over the last 2 years. So we're asking for a non-recurring cost of living supplement of $500,000, inclusive of fringe, provided to all bargaining unit, or not each bargaining unit employee, but to the bargaining unit employees employed on the date of signature of the agreement. And then the rest of the language is the same as what was taken from the SEIU agreement, that it would be determined by PESPA at our sole discretion and attached on exhibit, and then would later be attached to Exhibit A. We have accepted your proposal for the reasons that you proposed to increase or reclassify child development associates from a D8 to a D9. That constitutes an additional 10% pay increase. Our concern is anytime is increasing one subgroup of employees to not to the detriment necessarily, but to the exclusion of another subgroup. But we also understand that our CDAs do unique work, and their work is not only aligned with the district strategic plan, but that they also that there are also some funding differences that affect that group that could make a difference. Similarly, and I'm sure that you, and I know actually that y'all have received probably similar feedback from our LPNs as we have. In fact, that discussion has been going on for some time. Like you, we received a stack of, I think that there's 62 letters inside this packet from LPNs asking for a reclassification of their work. Our understanding was that there was, if not a survey, then research done at the end of last year into the status of LPNs or the LPN job in our district as compared to the other job opportunities available to LPNs in the community. I don't know the extent to which, I know we weren't involved in it. I don't know the extent to which LPNs were themselves involved in it, but we understand that research took place. And so we know that given the shortage of LPNs, even in the community, we face similar pressures here, and raising them or reclassifying them from a D10 to a D11, like the CDAs, will do a lot to make sure that under relatively recent legal requirements, every school has an LPN. That would help with recruitment. It would help to also alleviate some of the strain on so many LPNs that are expected to be itinerant now, especially given the direct health and personal care work that LPNs do with our medically fragile students, or when any student is medically vulnerable. Same language under item and this is where my numbering gets a little bit mixed up, but I think it's number 5 regarding the license and certification. No changes that there's simply a hyphen added after CDAs, that last bullet. There were no changes otherwise to that language that we had already agreed on, and that was in response to a request that we had made, so we appreciate that. We have agreed to the 80%, or rather the increased health insurance in which the board pays 80% of the total cost, and the bargaining unit employees pay 20% of the total cost. We want to clarify that that is not a 20% increase. It simply means that unlike the last 3 years, that they would be coming back to the premium, the coverage under the contract, which is approximately 20%. We, acknowledging the proposal that y'all brought to the table last session, specifically, are adding a differential specifically for medical behavioral assistants and paraprofessionals in any of our 4 exceptional student centers: Nana Harris, Paul B. Stevens, Richard L. Sanders, and Calvin Hunsinger. We are sticking to the request that differential be extended to all bargaining unit employees at the centers. It is not a monumental difference, and it would serve to not only value and incentivize the work done at the centers, but also would not contribute to any kind of further division between the job descriptions at those centers. Article D, we agreed to the amendment of the CBA under Article 9D regarding substituting. We know that that's work that HR has been doing to address when certain roles that, even though they're in the support unit, tend to carry a roster assigned or a set or an assignment of a student group assigned, like a CDA or a PE assistant, providing that if there are 2 units and one is absent, then the employee remaining in that unit or covering for the other would be paid at 1.5 times their normal salary for taking on those additional students. We agreed to that language. We had asked for comp time, and we know we came down on a disagreement about that, but we understand that that does address, at the very least, those issues with CDAs and PE assistants. We agreed that we have previously agreed that the board will continue to provide pre-K 3 and pre-K 4 education for employees' children to sunset at the end of this year. We all had also agreed to evaluate in good faith the contracts with third-party vendors to look at expanding this access by the end of this year. No changes there except for one word. The third sentence rather. The parties expressly agree or acknowledge that the exploration of expanding opportunities for wraparound services does not, previously it said suggest. I'd like to change that word to conclude, because there is a suggestion that we would hopefully come to an agreement. It doesn't conclude that. It's not to say that that's enforceable, but I think conclude is a more accurate description of what we're looking for in that exploration of expanding access. We'd also like to look and in that same kind of spirit, and we've seen it in the SEIU, it's related in the SEIU agreements, if not necessarily in writing, but the exploration behind it. And similar to what we've seen on the instructional side, we'd like to agree that we will evaluate, or the board will evaluate in good faith, wage reclassification, increased paid work hours and or days, additional unit allocation, and recruitment of data management technicians at the elementary schools. This was one of our one of the topics that we requested to reopen, and we have not until very recently come down on agreeing to look at any of those. But the data management technicians at elementary schools, what sets them apart is that they don't have a second. There is no senior DMT. There's one person doing the role for the entire school. And while there are by nature fewer students at that school, there is perhaps even more data gathering than we see at the or certainly disproportionately more data gathering at the elementary level than we necessarily see at the middle and high school level. So it is a disproportionate load on those DMTs. And we would like to agree to explore that in ways that we can potentially divide up the work or incentivize it so that they are not, so that they're doing equitable work for equitable pay. And you can see on the salary schedule. It says Schedule D, but it's Appendix A. I just noted in the top right corner today's date and the fact that it came from us. But we're using the same format that we did, that y'all created. We just plugged in numbers, and so we used the same calculator. You'll see on one of the things that we should draw to attention is that we have agreed to the addition of level F rather than the tacking on of level V. So we agreed to that last week. I did use a little bit of different shading there to indicate that even though our employees would see increases at level G, those employees starting after this agreement is in place would be moving to 50, under our proposal, would be moving to $15.50 an hour. So that would be the new starting minimum, but only for those jobs that are currently at $15 an hour. All of the other rates there would stay the same. There would be no increase to levels G8 through G14, sorry, the new F8 through F14. And so I just used a little bit of different shading there to show you that would not work the same as the rest of the scale. I just wanted to indicate every place in which we made any kind of a proposed adjustment. And that is our count.
Do you have a place where should we go upstairs or in that room?
Upstairs is probably more comfortable because there's a table to spread out.
Okay.
We left the door open. We started just leaving the door open so that it's
No,
not.
I'm curious because last week it was just like, or last time it was just,
It's still.
we have to talk and we have to be able to work. So is it?
Yeah. If the letters, we're happy to move upstairs. If y'all would rather stay here. We can have,
Either, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, because
We'll go upstairs.
you know, that's fine. You can stay because you got a free to that. We can go.
Yeah, it's fine. It's okay.
Well, you-
Here.
Because it's cold. And I know you're gonna like that cold.
You've got more people.
We'll do it.
It's okay. They got rid of-
No, we
that we have not been able to come to, agreement on. Do you want me to summarize, or just for the record,
If you feel, yeah.
okay. So the district in their counter did, in the most recent counter, agree to, pay a, $400,000 one-time payment. We've asked that, we've disagreed a little bit on the terms. We've asked that it be called a cost of living supplement. The district, would like to refer to it as a bonus, but the amount, the district countered with, or rather settled on a counter of 400,000. We did update a couple of words, just some minor words that really were just difference in language, and neither one presented that much, none of the vocabulary changes presented that much of a problem.
Right.
We agreed that our priority is getting this, the agreement to the December 12th board meeting for approval after ratification, so that we could have payout of retro prior to winter break. That's a priority for both sides. And so recognizing that's a priority for both sides, we would agree that if that is possible, then we don't have to include the language around it. There's already language about retro in the contract. So as long as that's an agreement on both sides, we don't have to add that into the MOU. We also noted that we asked for inclusion of language in our proposal about the preschool, the coverage of employees' children's costs for, or rather not tuition exactly, but fees for preschool. The board already covers that. They've agreed to do that through the end of this year. That's when the contract ends as well. There was a difference in language. We had asked for collaboration, but because that involves outside contracts, that's really a management right issue, and we wouldn't be involved in that. That's fine, as long as the priority was there in those discussions. We don't necessarily have to be a part of those discussions. We could be, but we don't have to be. And so we agreed that we don't have to have that language about collaboration with PESPA in that particular item. However, we had requested, because we could not come to an agreement on reclassifying LPNs, upgrading LPNs. We had proposed language for two different items of language. One would be looking at or proposing ongoing discussions, sort of similar to the preschool fee item, but looking at and evaluating the recruitment and retention of LPNs, MBAs, CNAs, any of our PESPA employees who provide either nursing or other medical or personal care directly with students. The language was, again, opening that discussion, not necessarily guaranteeing an agreement, but opening the discussion moving forward, recognizing, just like I described before our caucus, the reasons that we would be looking at that. Also, a similar proposal to look at the elementary DMTs and addressing the fact that they are doing work that, even though it's for a smaller student population, the fact that there are not two assigned to each school, as they are at the middle and high school level, creates a sort of a disproportionate workload. And so we asked to look at those separately, and that was the district has rejected that as also being a management right. We disagreed on that. We agree that the staffing model language around that is a management right, but we disagree that the consideration of those two topics is outside of the scope of bargaining. So we rejected that. Actually, the district rejected it. We don't agree. I think the piece that sticks out the most to me is, or to us, is the extension of the 50-cent hourly differential to all unit employees at the centers. This was the extension of the 50-cent hourly differential to MBAs and pairs at the centers was a district proposal. So we can't claim credit for that. That was a district proposal. But what we are not going to do is agree to a proposal that, not intentionally, but has the effect of creating division within a site. We've already agreed to the reclassification of the CDAs, recognizing the valuable work that the CDAs do. But understanding that anytime that we carve out a particular employee group, it has a potential to create conflict and division among other employee groups that don't feel recognized for the work that they do. That's a risk that we run. I want to note that the CDA reclassification, as legitimate and as valuable as that is very near to $500,000. 469,000, I think, for 68. How much? 400,000. Okay, so 389, closer to 400,000. The proposal that we have put forth to extend the 50-cent differential to MBAs, not just to MBAs and pairs at the centers, but all, is a much smaller number. Now, I know that y'all have, you don't necessarily have to trust my numbers on it, but I calculated as being under 100,000, and that's for the entire proposal, not those that weren't included in the original district's proposal. So we're just not in a position to agree to that. I'll tell you that we did so a couple of things since our session last week. We have gotten a lot of calls and a lot of emails. I don't know if y'all have.
Yes.
But we've gotten a lot of calls and emails. Lots from the nurses wondering why they're pleased to be considered in this bargaining session, not necessarily this session, but this season, have not been acknowledged. We've let them know that we brought them up as a reopener, that the district did not agree to hear any reopeners, but that we were trying to find ways of leaving the path open in recognition of the work that they do and the shortage that the district faces there. They also are affected by statutory requirements and are often now divided as itinerants between sites. We got other calls asking us why we had not agreed to settle yet, and insisting that we would not be able to settle for more than what another bargaining unit had settled at, and that we were being irresponsible by risking not getting payment out before winter break. I will say that those calls came exclusively, and I mean exclusively, from the administrative offices downtown. There were we had no other calls from any other, or emails from any other ESP employee in the district with that message. That was exclusively in administrative offices, and they came before the weekly update that was sent out on Monday, I think, that you let us know that what you were sending out. These calls came before that. So it was stemming from discussions that were happening away from the table, and again, only coming from employees in the administrative offices.
I've received emails from school-based people as well, so I just wanted.
We didn't receive any.
You didn't receive any. I have received calls, and my office has received calls from school, so I just wanted to also share that.
But it's hard to communicate with the people they're not members, where we don't have the ability to send message through PCSB to let them know what is happening in the bargaining unit.
Yeah.
The only way we do it is just for the members, is the only one that watch them.
Yeah.
So if we want to be on the same page, like you guys sending out
Anybody
the whole,
can watch these.
They do.
they do, but
They do.
the same way they send a whole entire message to the whole entire district, we should have the same ability to do it when we are bargaining and have the same conversation.
And that was a
It should be a
reopener. It was a
yeah.
reopener. It is a discussion, an ongoing discussion, because it presents absolutely no hardship to the district, and it's simply something that's been rejected. I understand why, but I think it's important to continually address it so that people watching understand why. I hope that they do.
So I think, so I think we're hearing that we've got the two, I think I'm hearing, is it the two items that we still have not come to an agreement on,
I
right?
believe, yes, generally,
was
so
there.
yeah, those two.
Well, we aren't, so I think those are the two, right? just
I
wanna
think
make sure
so.
that I've got
Well,
it
there's
listed.
three. There's three. It's the hourly differential at the centers, and it's the exploration of the issues affecting LPN, or, you know, the medical, those offering medical or nursing care, our personal care, and our elementary DMTs, and technically those are three different items.
Okay. So I'll just read, if, I don't want to interrupt if you were.
No, the only thing I would add is that the other communication that we've seen an uptick in since last week, we had a number of employees at the centers, ESVs at this, some at the sites, also at the center. So that one was split. Very, very upset and frustrated by last week's discussion of that they took as, and I don't think it was intended this way, but just like we have encouraged in many other respects, care has to be taken, not to send the wrong message regarding the work ethic of those employees. When they heard that they were being considered, not to have, there wasn't a need for them in some situations because, and I think the quote was something like they were reading newspapers. That landed poorly, and we knew it would.
It does.
We knew it would. But we did get communication about that was from the centers and from the sites.
Okay, so I'm gonna kind of reference what the items you have just mentioned so that we can come to some, you share with us that we're probably not coming to an agreement tonight, but, yes or no? I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Those are the three, yeah.
So in reference to and again, I'm gonna restate what I've restated probably the last 3 or 4 meetings. The purpose of presenting that differential at the centers for the MBAs, and we included the paras, was in direct response to the ability to recruit and retain at those sites. It is a huge difference of vacancies at those sites, which then you have also brought up in previous earlier meetings regarding the workload and the effect of that at our centers. And we recognize and we hear that, and we've done our due diligence too, right? And we've had those conversations and understand that the work is different at the centers. The students who are attending those schools have different needs. And that was one proposal that we presented to recognize that fact. It is not the intention that on the flip side of an employee at a school base, what we call them general ed sites, that their work is not valued. I think very clearly overall, all employees, which is what we have continuously come back and raised to a 4.5%, the highest percentage increase that we've given in years, in years, that recognizes the effect. We have differentials for lots of different things in our district to recognize what it is, a differential. And that was a proposal we brought. If you do not want that, then obviously you have rejected that and we'll move on from there. But I wanted to clarify that. The second one regarding.
Can I just add one thing on that too? So it helps with recruiting because of the vacancies at the center for the MBAs and the paraprofessionals. But it also addresses one of the concerns that you had brought forward, and that is when there is a vacancy at the center, that does create, it creates work for the others that are there when there's a vacancy. So we thought that pulled those two issues together. Helps us with recruiting, so hopefully we can.
And retention.
Recruiting and retention, because what we see is people come to the centers and then they apply to jobs in other sites. And so then there's still a vacancy at the center. So the 50-cent differential would help there. It also helps with the people who are retained at the centers doing those duties, that the vacancies don't exist. So we thought that benefited the two issues that you've brought to the issue you brought to our attention and the issue we were talking about with retention and recruitment.
It does. I think that, sorry, I had turned that on so we could communicate, and I apologize for the help then, if you'd like to clarify, help, because I can't explain it. I mean, I can't explain. What amounts to a $30,000 difference, to extend it to all of the PESPA employees at the site versus us already agreeing to a $400,000 one-time payment when SEIU, a smaller unit, is getting $650,000. So we've already moved compared to SEIU, nearly 40% less, $250,000 versus a $30,000 difference for employees who are also doing that same work.
Well,
Not the same work, but they're working in the same conditions.
we negotiated with SEIU and half of their unit are employees at DO5. And that was something that was important to them. That was what we did to get over the threshold and settle that agreement. So that's why. This is our 10th time here today,
Yeah,
and we're doing our best to try to come to an agreement so the employees can get paid before the winter break.
I just disagree. I just fundamentally disagree that it is your best. If you look at the money, knowing that we already have nearly a $400,000 commitment to reclassifying a single job description. And also knowing that our unit, a larger unit, and with employees that work directly with students. I'm not devaluing anyone's work, but I am emphasizing that this work is working directly with some of our most medically fragile students. And it only costs the district an additional $30,000 when we have already come down by $250,000, a payment made to a unit that is smaller than ours. I don't think that's gonna land with employees as the best you can do.
I will counter that with, it's not coming down. We came in and added a one-time non-recurring bonus today. So again, we are negotiating with you for purposes. And so and I will also tell you, you had, your argument before was about identifying certain group MBAs and paras, I mean, originally, and I know we've moved on from this, but you had felt strongly that all MBAs and paras at all the sites because it is one group. So now you are asking to identify any job title at our centers, right? Then that would include DMTs, it would include clerks, it would include. So so now all the other DMTs and the clerks throughout the district, that's okay?
No, I believe me, I would give more money.
No, but you're asking that. So again, whatever,
No,
you're,
what
no,
I'm-
you are, that's your proposal. So anyway, that is,
No,
we have
let's
expressed
make sure to
our,
clarify that.
Go
What
ahead.
we did was say, if you're going to pay the MBAs and paras at the centers
for the reasons we
for the
stated,
reasons you stated, then you
which
should
was a valid
extend
reason,
that
because I've
same.
heard lots of shaking of heads.
They are valid reasons. You should extend that same compensation to MBAs and paras that are doing substantially similar work, but not necessarily at a center. And that's why our original counter to that had been, let's
And I
extend,
explained the
sorry,
difference.
just a second.
Sure.
That we extend that same differential to all ESPs, MBAs and paras doing in the ESE department. That paras that would sort of be, or MBAs that would be part of it, paras would take, there would be some exception. The district countered with the fact that that would be substantially more money. Understandable, worth it, I think, but still more money. So we said, okay, what would be less money? Less money would be the MBAs and para, or rather staying within the centers, but extending it to all employees. We had a lengthy discussion about this last time. And so that we proposed it, we asked that it be costed out. That was in an email response last Friday, that was rejected and not costed out. And so I did it myself and found that there was only about a $30,000 difference there. Again, compared to $250,000 less in a one-time payment. And in comparison to nearly a $400,000 commitment on the part of the district for a single job category.
So-
That's how that discussion went.
So again, I'm gonna reiterate, it is not the purpose of the differential was to assist with recruitment, retention, having the positions filled at the school. So money or no, it's the purpose of the differential. So I know you were sitting here looking, it is only this and it is only this and that you might be right, but that is not the purpose of that. You raise it for everybody and then I'm still in the same position. So I think we can agree to disagree. And I think we've stated our rationale for that multiple times. And so again, I think we can agree to disagree on that. And I'm not sure where we're gonna go with that because, you know,
I'm not sure.
yeah. So I'm gonna move on to the LPNs.
And I just have a question. You just stated that because they have people and $50 an hour. We got job classification. There are in the D5, on the D5.
No,
we have-
what Lori said is the a
Half of that
large portion of that unit. She didn't say that you didn't have it. We understand that.
That was important to them. And that is what got us to settle with SEIU. Half of their units are at DO5. So that was something we used to settle with them. We're done. We'd like to settle tonight with PESPA and we'd like to get over that hump. We have a disagreement on splitting the duties at the centers. This contract is open in what, 6 months? If you want to continue those discussions, we can continue those discussions. But right now, the idea is a 50-cent differential for the paras and the MBAs at the centers. And that will help us with recruitment and retention. It will help the staff at the centers because there will be less vacancies. We think that's a good offer. We think the rationale for the proposal is sound. We disagree. So if we can't get over that, then I guess we can regroup. You mentioned in your email that was non-negotiable. If that's the case, then I don't know why we're continuing to talk tonight. So is that where we're at? It's non-negotiable?
Yeah, we just simply reject your rejection on that.
Okay, so if it's, so then I guess we're done.
You were gonna address the other two.
I don't
consider
know.
points.
Well,
If
the
you
other
can't
two,
get a-
the other two issues are things we do every year. The management does it constantly. We classify, look at staffing models, and to the extent there's an issue with that and you believe that there's an impact, there's a remedy for
I
that.
mean, I think y'all received the same letters that we did that suggested that there was an issue, so much so that
You're
we
talking
did
L-
go
are you
to an
talking
external analysis.
You're talking LPNs?
Well, LPNs is an example, yeah.
And we understand LPNs can make more money outside of the school district. We understand that there's a great demand at hospitals and that the cost or the price that they would be paid at hospitals exceeds what the school district can do. We understand that. And we have received letters. But we're not prepared to reclassify LPNs.
Right, and we did reject that, and we heard that.
Yeah.
But what we suggested, and I want to emphasize again, the commitment to have the discussion is free. Many of the things that we have asked for were, in the very beginning, were free. And because the district refused to reopen any parts of the existing contract later, I know that we've made some changes to the sub piece in lieu of other proposals. This is an opportunity to recognize the unique challenges facing, and not just the unique challenges facing these employees, but the unique need that the district has for these professionals. There are statutory requirements around LPNs in particular. There are funding requirements around a number of other roles that serving in service of our most medically fragile students. And there are compliance requirements facing the work of DMTs on campuses. And what we've asked for is a discussion of those issues, like a work group on those issues, not infringing on management rights. I can understand how the staffing model itself is management rights. I get that. We included many other parts of the job that need to be re-examined, and those are not uniquely the purview of management rights. And I will also point out that even if they were, the district can, if you want, agree to look at it. Management rights management rights are a floor. It doesn't mean you can't do better.
And we do look at it. we look at these issues.
So why not
all the
look at it
time.
with us? If we're saying that you are receiving the same communications that we do, and we have even additional perspective to offer because we are the employees.
Mhm.
I'm not myself the employee, but we represent the employees. We're here on behalf of them. If you can do it, why would you not?
Because the way it's written is you are suggesting that the district is contractually obligated to reclassify.
No,
And it's something that we look at and we're happy to look at with those affected people.
I actually
but we
edited
don't-
the
but we-
language
but we do
several
not-
times to take that out.
But we
Any
do
kind of
not intend
suggestion.
to put it in the agreement, in the contract. But we certainly are willing to discuss the duties of the LPNs, the duties of the DMTs, the duties of all of the staff at the centers.
So if you're willing to discuss it, why not include that intention in the agreement?
Because I already said that, because the way it's written, it suggests that we are contractually obligated to do it, to reclassify and rechange the job descriptions, and we're not.
We responded to your suggestion of alternative vocabulary to remove that requirement. When you said we want to change the language of the original proposal to get away from the idea that we are required to come to an agreement, we agreed to that. We did it with the preschool, the pre-K, fee, on the pre-K fee item. And we mirrored that same language in the item regarding the LPNs and BAs, CNAs, and that.
Did you put it in our,
EMT
did you update that in the language or just in our emails going back and
in the
forth?
language,
The contract and in
in the
a
proposal, like,
proposal?
the last proposal we sent.
Is that in paragraph 10, paragraph 12?
Pull it up.
Is that where the green or the purple? Hold on, let me pull it up.
I'm just.
Just give me 1 minute.
I'm just, okay, I'm gonna try to bring it up too.
No, of course.
The first one. I think I just signed. I am looking at the one that you sent at 5:14. Just to make sure
Sorry,
we're
I'm
on the
not-
same.
I'm looking in the Word doc and I don't, but I can match it up if you like.
You've got 10, 11, and 12, nothing on 11, you've got 12.
Yeah,
They're both
10,
in
11,
red.
yeah, 11 was just a format, like I said, I tried to edit out so it was showing all the format changes because that just makes it muddy. But I said in both items, they're slightly different in the sense that one is talking about more jobs. And also, when I had originally had, or I said additional unit allocation. And that was not something that we included in number 10. That was unique to the proposal on DMTs. We agreed to take out the language that you asked to be taken out from item 9. Instead of does not, I forget what the original language was now, but does not
Said
exclude.
suggest, you put
Suggest.
include, we put require.
Exactly, that's completely fine, like, because again, the spirit of it is, we know that doesn't require an agreement, it's simply having a discussion. Including the employees themselves, which I think is critical to get into reaching a strong agreement that will truly accomplish recruitment and retention. Numbers 10 and 12, I'm fine if you want to remove the additional unit allocation, if you feel that excessively burdens management rights. But the discussion about wage reclassification, increased hours or days, recruitment incentives, all completely non-binding because it uses the same language that we did in number 9. There simply is no reason for I'll say, no legitimate reason for the district to refuse to have the discussion. The only reason that I hear as a reason not to have the discussion is not respectful of those employees.
So let me ask you this, you said that the issue with expanding the differential to all people was non-negotiable. As far as that's a deal breaker. Is
Yeah.
is that the case? Because
Yes.
if it is, then
Then there's no
Then
real
there's
discussion.
not. discussion about working with this language.
Well, I think that there's always you can always counter. I mean, I don't see why.
Our
you're not-
counter
Yeah, it's gonna
is,
be rejected anyway.
is the paras and the MBAs,
Yeah,
50-cent differential.
and have drawn the distinction between the cost to the district, recognizing the
Right.
purpose when we conceded not extending it to all MBAs and paras, recognizing the purpose of you're wanting to recruit people to the centers. It's a legitimate purpose.
In positions of MBAs and paras.
I understand, but I'm saying.
But
the reason
it's
you
good for
did-
everybody to understand that out there, that
Yeah, I
that
think-
has
I mean,
been,
they were
those are the. I know they are, but I wanted to make sure that they understand our side of this.
And
the
I
two
think it's a legitimate, I mean, I think I can understand, though, I don't think that our effort is to raise all ships. We don't our method, methodology isn't really the word. Our ethic isn't generally to try to draw lines and draw division between employee groups. But we understand that that certain accommodations, certain considerations should be made for different purposes. Which is why we agreed to with not extending that differential to all MBAs and paras. One of the things you said was, if you don't create a differential, then there's not a recruitment incentive to the centers. And while I don't know that I agree with that, you couldn't pay people enough to do that work exclusive of an individual calling to serve our students most in need. There's simply not enough money to bridge that gap. So we understand that recruitment is a legitimate purpose. But we are not willing to further divide the staff on campuses. We're just not willing to do that. And the district has failed to offer a compelling reason why. When we show that it is such a minor monetary amount compared to every other concession that we've made at the table, there is no legitimate reason for it.
I was gonna respond to something, but I
It's
can't,
okay. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
no, you didn't, I just. Was thinking and now it just went right on me.
So is your objection dividing the employees at the center? That's the objection?
Yes. Our contention is that it is only a $30,000 difference to offer that same differential and incentivize recruitment and retention at the centers for all ESB employees there.
Let us talk about this.
And I'm certainly open to, because the language reopening, it's not reopening, but opening to ongoing discussion around in numbers 10
Okay,
and
so
12.
here's.
We're open to suggestions on that. It's
So-
different from what we normally do.
Before we ask for 5 minutes, because I don't want to waste your time or our time. So if it is such a division on the proposal that we made on the differential. We just pull that offer out, off the table. We go back and we look at some language to address, I believe it's 10 and 12, just because I think there's an 11 extra, right?
The
So
final two.
the final two. Let us work on, see if we can meld this and match what you're asking for on those. Would that be
So I'm sorry, but just make sure I understand. What you're saying is you want to pull your proposal to extend the 50-cent hourly differential at the centers.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to extend it to all ESV employees there.
well, we have a proposal for a differential for the MBAs and the paras at the 4 identified centers. You have rejected that. You have proposed 2 different options. First, you were talking expanding to MBA and paras across the district. Then you were changing that and doing all PESPA bargaining unit employees at the centers. We have rejected that. So again, I think we're going back and forth and back and forth. So again, it's not, then where do we go? And so, well, that was our proposal. We put that in there, so we'll take it off the table.
So I just want to make sure that I understand what you're saying. You're saying that rather than agreeing to extend your proposal for the 50-cent hourly differential from MBAs and paras at the centers to all bargaining unit employees at the centers, which would constitute approximately $30,000 difference. Rather than do that, you want to pull the entire proposal. And then are you saying consider the language around 10 and 12?
So I'm gonna repeat what I said, because I think you keep repeating what you said, and it's not in or if I'm
understand the
doing this or that.
procedure. I get
No,
it.
I
We all
understand the procedure as well, but I am not, we never agreed to the expansion of the 50-cent differential, and that's what we do here. We present, you counter, we counter back. So what we are doing is I am asking so that we can come to some agreement tonight. That seems to be, so we will pull our proposal off and look at some language to address 10 and 12. Because you haven't agreed to our proposal.
I just want to I want to make sure everybody understands. There is absolutely no reason for you to withdraw your proposal,
We've rejected it.
right? Because we countered and you rejected that.
Correct.
So what you're doing is moving backwards for what you offered these employees.
You
Over
rejected
a
what we
$30,000.
offered to the
I
employees.
understand the procedure of it. We've all been doing this a long time.
I'm saying that, just what you're saying.
Right, and so I want to make sure that all the employees who are here and listening understand that the district, rather than extending that proposal, spending an additional $30,000 when you have just very recently settled for 40% more in a one-time payment for a smaller unit, and again, recognizing the work is all critical, but the unit that also got a massive increase for bus drivers, one specific group, totally outside of the bargaining process in May.
It's not relevant to this conversation.
Anything I say in this conversation is relevant to this conversation. Believe me, we're not just chatting.
It's a different-
But we have heard from in the past that we're bargaining for PESPA, and this is what we're bargaining. You
That's a
you
comparison.
directed that to us.
Yeah, right.
So-
That has been in comparison to efforts to contain my work as the person who's at both of these tables. SEIU is a different unit, and just like we stated at the time, we were very happy. We were happy when we saw the agreement a couple of days ago. They got a strong agreement. But it does raise a question in employees' minds, and I just want to make sure that I'm drawing this distinction. The district, rather than spend an additional $30,000 to honor the employees at serving directly our most medically fragile students, rather than doing that for such a small amount that it is practically incomparable to anything else that was contained in the SEIU contract, or most of the things that we have conceded in this agreement thus far.
So, and I'll.
Rather than to make that increase, you want to pull it from the table. Again, I understand the procedural maneuvering, but I want to make sure everybody watching it does. And then come back on language that you previously said had nothing, was not even within the purview of bargaining, and make small free adjustments to it. And somehow that is a concession, again, to these employees that do direct medical and personal care to our most medically fragile students. You wanted to incentivize them, you wanted to recruit them, and now for a negligible amount of money, to make a procedural point, you want to pull it off the table. I just want to make sure everybody
And I just want
understands.
to make sure that we have attempted to do that, and you have rejected that. And please remember, you do there is also the agreed upon, proposed $400,000 that can be used at your sole discretion. And so if you feel very strongly about that, that is something that you can address within that $400,000 as well. So
Understandable.
that,
We
well,
certainly
no, I
could.
want everybody to understand that.
Yeah.
That- Again, thank you. I'm just trying to make sure that
That's a one-time payment, and while I think that is again 40% less than we see extended to this other unit, when previously it was held as an either or for our unit, but I'm not at that table, and so y'all, I can have my own theories or opinions of why that took place. this $400,000 amount is a one-time payment.
Mhm.
What you had proposed was a permanent
You're right.
wage, or rather wage differential
Correct.
at these centers. And
Correct.
again, with all of these numbers, it's a $30,000 difference. I
Mhm.
think everybody needs to understand that this is
Which is recurring.
maneuvering at best.
Which is a recurring expense over the course of 5 years, it's $150,000.
Yeah, I know, that's pretty direct, basic multiplication. These people are serving our most medically fragile students and their
Correct.
families every single day.
Correct.
There is no amount of money that you could pay those people that is going to be a sufficient recruitment or retention incentive. They're doing it because of who they are on the inside. I can speak to that as a parent, and I can speak to that as their representative. I just think it's absurd.
And again.
The
I mean,
district doesn't see that
and-
minor value and what that would mean to the people that are
I
doing that
think-
work every day.
I think I'm gonna reiterate and restate that our value is in the 4.5% increase as well.
Mhm.
And we have DMTs at our centers, and we have other support staff positions
Yeah.
that are filled
Yeah,
at our centers. Again, the purpose of I understand it is a 50 cent per hour differential, but the point and the purpose is to recruit for those positions that are vacant at those and have a hard to fill status. And so this is in no means anything to do about the difference of valuing employees who work at those schools, who are doing a fabulous job each and every single day. And so to be portrayed as just because it is a minimal amount of money, that we are not open to that, it defeats it's not going with the purpose of why we proposed that in the beginning. So again, I think
it
we
doesn't
can.
fit within the purpose, but I guess it's still.
Of recruitment and retention, and so I think
I constantly struggle with the idea. And it seems to, I mean, I will go further than to say the idea, the ethic. I honestly, it mystifies me. I have struggled with it my entire time here. Of why, and I can answer it in my own head. Why the district, even with changes in leadership and all of these communications that happen, why the district is so entrenched on doing the minimum or only doing what serves a purpose.
Whoa, whoa.
4.5% is not the minimum. 4.5% far exceeds what we have available, quite frankly. And so for you to say for us to do the absolute minimum, I find that insulting, quite frankly.
Again,
Another $400,000 on top of that. How
Right.
could you say that's new? That is 4.5% is the highest raise that we've given since before 2013.
yeah, I know, I'm proud of it because I was the one that got it. So I'm proud of that. And we can share in that. we can
Together, we
share-
came to it,
Mhm.
together,
And
we have done that.
We have collaborated on that, and it has
We
not
keep
been
talking
through
about
an absence of absolute battle at the table. What I'm saying is, I will never understand why it has to be this much of a battle. And when, in comparison to those kind of numbers, and I know exactly how much it is, in comparison to those kind of numbers, when you have the opportunity to do something good for people who are doing great stuff, and that no one in this room, I'm not talking about the people behind me, I'm talking about the people that are at this table. No one is doing that work directly, and it only costs you $30,000. And it's just like a good thing to do for good people who are doing good work. If that doesn't fit within your narrow scope of the purpose of the money, so what? It's a small amount of money. It seeks to expand, to include more people. Like if you try to do something good for people, right? You cast a wide net. You're gonna end up reaching people who aren't necessarily the ones you were aiming for. And that's okay, because they're all doing good work. It doesn't cost you very much, it costs you very little compared to anything that else is being done as part of this agreement that we have already conceded, that's being done at the other table. Just be nice. Just do something nice that you can do and is well within your
I'm gonna
reach.
stop, and you know what, I think I hear what you said, but
But
I'm
threatening to pull it
trying,
back because
I'm trying very hard not to feel that you are saying that we are not nice.
Y'all feel how you wanna feel.
That is,
I know,
okay.
you can
I
feel how you
think
wanna feel
that's-
about me.
I
You can
think
feel-
we are done for tonight then, because I do take offense to that then,
Okay.
so, thank you. You got myself. Thank you.
Brian. You're reading the newspaper, just, time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, guys.
Bye.
Bye.